everybody, how are you? It is awesome to spend some time with you today. I'm here at the Shuck House and getting ready to do a little baking here for the Thanksgiving holiday. And before I got started on any of that, I wanted to sneak in a quick video. I thought about you as I was getting ready to bake a cake today. Before we get much further, I want to recognize that I'm representing my alma mater today, Western Kentucky University, down in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I didn't want anybody to get upset. Wanted you to know why I was wearing my WKU sweatshirt. It's cold here. We're getting ready to put a fire on in the fireplace and just kind of hunker down for the snow and sleet that is supposed to come our way tonight and tomorrow. But aside from all of that, let's think for a minute about we're in the holiday season and we're getting ready to bake, and certainly something that I'm getting ready to do here in a minute. And when we bake, when I bake here, and I do a lot of the cooking around my house, I have a lot of things. I have things like ingredients, like I have cinnamon here that I like to use. I have some flour that I use. I even have tools that I use, right? That I might like stir a bowl or something like that. Sometimes I even have something to drink. Here I have a cup of coffee from my coffee shop down the street from me. And in addition to all of these things, we have a lot of other ingredients that we don't have here: eggs and water and milk and baking powder and baking soda. We have a lot of things that we might gather. So I get all of these things out, right? Well, what do I do with them? Exactly how am I going to bake my cake? Does anybody know how to bake a cake off the top of their head? Not without an amazing amount of practice, right? Or maybe you've been to pastry school or something like that. Something that I've never had the chance to do. So when I get stuck on a recipe, if I want to create something, right, I go to trusted sources of information. And here, if we're baking cakes, we might go to, this is an example of trusted source of information, right? The Better Homes and Gardens new cookbook. I got this when my wife and I got married. We've consulted it ever since. And then I have a secondary source of information that I like to use. It's the Cook Illustrated's The New Best Recipe Cookbook, right? So I get all my ingredients together, right? So I gather them all together. I get my cookbooks out. I begin to look for the recipe, right? And I find a trusted source of information about exactly how I might go about putting that cake together. Now, once I've got all of that, right? I've got my ingredients, I've got the recipe, I know exactly what I'm going to do. It requires one more action step, right? I actually have to bake the cake. I have to begin to put the ingredients together. I have to measure things out, and I have to do it precisely. I can't do it very sloppily. I have to put the dry ingredients together and perhaps the wet ingredients together, and then kind of put them together all, kind of slowly so that things don't lump up together, right? But I actually have to begin to take some action. So to get the cake, it's not enough to just have the ingredients sitting around and kind of wish that it would happen. I actually have to do it, right? Well, what does this have to do with your hat projects, right? What does this reflections on cake baking have anything to do with your particular hat projects? Well, it actually has two really important lessons embedded within it. The first is, within your own hat project, you might be stuck. You might be thinking to yourself, well, how am I supposed to teach people this leadership concept? Or how am I supposed to teach these dispatch officers exactly how to do this? Or how am I supposed to teach these customers about health and well-being and nutrition? Where am I going to get all this information from? And I think that's a good question. Sometimes when I was doing instructional design, I would get stuck on a topic. And when I did that, I turned to trusted sources of information. Just like we would turn to a cookbook if we were looking for a recipe, there are trusted sources of information about your topic that are out there. There's the right way to dispatch a call. There's some subtle things that you can do to help people understand how healthier eating impacts their overall well-being. There's some things certainly some information you could go to about leadership and management, customer service, right? There are certain procedures that you know that you need to follow, that you can teach, right? You should go to those trusted sources of information. Instead of trying to rack your brain, trying to think, how would I even come up with new knowledge about this concept? It's not about coming up with new knowledge. It's about going to trusted sources of information, pulling out those pieces that work best for you, right? Finding the recipe that works best. Sometimes you have 2 or 3 examples. Finding the recipe that works best for you and putting it into action. And that's the second step. Once you have that trusted source of information, you actually have to begin to develop your product. So if we were baking a cake, we would very precisely, we would measure out our flour and our baking powder and our baking soda. We would get maybe 2 large eggs, right? We begin to put all of this together. Well, with your training project, think about all the ingredients that you already have. You have a task analysis and a needs analysis and a learner analysis and a context analysis. You even have an evaluation plan and you have objectives. So you could go to those, right? And you begin to put all of those things together. And it's not enough to just have the ingredients laying around. It's not enough just to have the task analysis. You actually have to put that task analysis into some kind of action plan. Begin to take action on creating your product. Sometimes we can get stuck around this, right? Because it seems a little overwhelming. Well, just like baking a cake, it takes some time. So if you don't get it right the very first time, don't worry about it. You'll get better with practice over time. The other thing is you need more than one ingredient to bake a cake, and you're going to need more than one ingredient to actually make your hat project. You're actually going to need to use your needs analysis and your task analysis and all the other mini assignments we've done in this class. So 2 things to take away from here. The first, when you get stuck, go see trusted sources of information for inspiration, right? And the second is, don't be afraid to take action. Sometimes the analysis can actually paralyze us from doing anything beyond just having that information. Don't be paralyzed by just this analysis of that information, but rather work to put that information to action for yourself, really creating an awesome and amazing tangible product, which will eventually be your hat product. It's been great spending this time with you. I hope you guys have a fantastic, very happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you after the holidays. Be well.